All right, back at it again. Here we go. Go full screen, make it easier to see everybody. Nick's over here playing around, going sideways to forward. I don't know.
Well, I'm on my phone because I'm working on the Tuckered Out Life stuff because I got to take some when I travel tomorrow. So along with working out, so I'm trying to multitask here, but it's not working.
I understand that. Where are you headed to tomorrow?
I got to go pick up Kale at Perler and.
Oh, that's right. So you got to head back.
And he talked to Perler, and Perler said he wanted a shirt. So hey, if Nick Perler wants a shirt that says Tuckered Out Wrestling, Nick Perler's getting a shirt that says Tuckered Out Wrestling.
There you go.
So anyways, that's like I said, I'm doing that. And yeah, this morning, talk about, life being crazy and everything. So got finished running with the head coach, come home. I'm like, all right, I need to plug my tire. And you think, just pop the lug nuts off. No, the caps on the lug nuts, because they'd used impact riches so much on it, just spun the little caps on them. So yeah, that was fun this morning trying to take all that out. So the time I was going to do this got pushed back.
Gotcha.
Anyway.
There you go. All right. And then, so when you're driving up tomorrow, when are you leaving, head back down?
It'll be straight up. Well, I'll leave tomorrow. I'm actually going to stop North Alabama and do an interview. Wednesdays are going to be like my Who's Who Wrestling Wednesdays. For this pod show that I do, kind of getting that going. I'm going to hit with Kyle Roughton, the guy that I coached at Oxford with, who won the state title together. And then head on up. I'll pick him up on Thursday afternoon, about 2 o'clock-ish, and we will turn around and come right back. So spend one night up there and come back.
All right. Well, like I said, if you're driving back through, we're leaving not next week, but like the week after for like our, I think it's like July 11th or whatever, something like that. I don't know. Tyler should know. He's watching the place. So
July 11th.
Yeah, July 11th. So, but yeah, so I mean, we'll be here if you wanted to stop on the way down. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to it as much as y'all are. So
I don't know if that's a good thing or not, Tyler, to say you're looking forward to having an empty house. Ed, he might really be telling you what he thinks about you.
Hey, man.
No, I love kind of being, kind of like on my own. Like when I used to live on my own down in Charleston, it was I just enjoy it. Like I like kind of being able to do my own thing and not being around people a lot. So
yeah,
I
got you.
It's also good to kind of like recharge your batteries like on your own too. Like usually when I'm there, all I do is like read, catch up on like Netflix shows or movies I haven't watched yet, and just kind of hang out there in solitude.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh yeah,
nothing wrong with that. Cool deal. We appreciate it. So, but yeah, so Nick, just hit me with a text or something, and we'll figure something out for later on.
Yeah, it's probably gonna have to be later on. But yeah, we'll get it. So no big deal, and we'll go from there.
And we'll figure out something. We'll do an episode all together somehow.
Yeah.
But good news. I mean, we have a little bit of wrestling to talk. Like,
yeah.
I mean, transfers have kind of been happening, so I guess we can start there. But kind of had some big transfer news. Like, I guess Gavin Teasdale.
Well, we thought it was going to be transfer news. Let's don't get everybody all excited like they did last week. We thought.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what I'm saying. Everybody should know what it is by now. But so Teasdale hit the portal, and like I saw before he hit the portal, I saw something on. I don't ever really get on Twitter. Like I have it, but I never get on it and use it. But like it pops up, like wrestling notifications will pop up every now and then, and I'm like, oh, that one's kind of interesting, so I'll look at one of those, but I don't really use Twitter, but I have it just, I guess, for that kind of stuff. So then I saw Riviera's hitting the portal, and I was like, oh, that one's kind of big. And then everybody was like, well, it's going to be a no-brainer. It's like Jersey, like these Jersey guys have this love for Jersey, and
I don't understand it. I genuinely don't.
Well, once you hang around Jersey people, like, it kind of makes sense.
I mean, they have this love for Jersey, and they all want to kind of go back and like.
See, my girlfriend, on the other hand, she's from Jersey, and she never wants to go back. So I don't understand that. She hates it.
It's got to be like a love-hate thing. So
yeah.
I bet like either it's got to be one of those things where like everybody either goes back or they never go back. It's like there's no like middle ground of kind of like it's okay. Nah,
I was gonna say, I've never heard someone say that about Jersey. I've never heard someone say, "Oh, it's okay." It's always, "Oh, I love it," or it's like that is the worst place to live. I'm like,
yes.
And I guess it depends on where it is, because a lot of times, I know growing up in the South, I always thought Jersey was like all city until we had Tressler with us, and I went up and it was like, oh, it was like my family's farm where he lived was like my family's farm here in Alabama, and it was like, oh, they're like, yeah, that's that small part of the state. The rest of it's like wide open. So
that's how I thought about New York too. I never knew. Like, I always just every time I heard New York, I assumed like Manhattan.
You think New York City, you know?
Yeah, you think that, like,
you think Queens. You think of the names that you see on the TV show.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
And then like, there's actually some farmland up
Yeah.
in New York.
a lot of it. Most of the state is.
Yeah.
So, but some not really surprising news. Like he's going back to Rutgers, or not back to, because he wasn't at Rutgers before, but so he's going to be at Rutgers. It'll be an interesting thing. So he'll be joining Soriano there. Heard him say that he is going 141. So he's like gone 25, 33, and now 41.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And he kind of saved face as he did it. It was like, I'm not leaving until I graduate, even though everybody knew he wanted to leave. And then when he graduated, it was like, oh, okay, now I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the timing of it does work out because he graduated and cannot be going masters instead of like midway through going type thing, which, I mean, I don't blame folks for doing it because like we've talked about it, like how many times have any of us switched jobs, switched locations, switched things?
Oh yeah.
That you have to go to, like, we've had this discussion before, but let's say you start a college career somewhere, let's say you have to finish there. I mean, why? I mean, you live and you learn and you find out that there are places that are better suited for you. You miss home, you want to do different things, different programs. I mean, so
and the coaches can just jump whenever they want to.
Yeah, but somehow these kids kind of get crucified when they go to a different program or something. They're like, treasure, no commitment, no. I'm like, no, they're living life. They're doing what's best for them. That's what's to be expected of mature adults trying to live their lives,
Yeah, and I mean, this is going to sound kind of crazy because not all athletes think this way, but I remember hearing, who was it? He played running back for the Texans for a while. Arian Foster went to Tennessee.
Yeah. Tennessee kid, yep.
Yeah, and I remember he was on a podcast one day and I was listening to it, and he was actually talking about why he didn't like Tennessee. And it really had one of the main reasons he didn't like going there was because they wouldn't let him major in what he wanted to major in.
Yes.
Which for an athlete is kind of strange because you think like a lot of them go there for just easy like sociology majors or some major that they don't have to put too much effort in. But
I'm guessing they didn't have the right tutors available for the major he wanted.
Well,
no,
it conflicted
University
with
of
his
Tennessee.
schedule.
No, the University of Tennessee is a great institution.
Yeah,
they would never, ever.
They flat out told him, they said, yeah, it just conflicts with your football schedule. And he was like, well, I kind of want to study this. And they're like, you're going to have to choose. And he ended up choosing football. And if I'm not mistaken, this is what he mentioned was part of his, like the catalyst of leaving the NFL early and going back to school, was he actually started studying philosophy. And I guess like him thinking about things more, he played football. He had a few good years. He made his money. And then he said, I'm out. Like, the injuries, concussions. He's like, he saw greener pastures getting out than staying in. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he actually went back to school for some sort of science. I can't remember what it was.
I mean, it's not surprising. He goes back to school to study and do stuff that he originally wanted to do anyway. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, but that's a factor that some people leave schools for. I know when Tavian left for South Carolina, he left Clemson to play at Carolina. Part of the reason is because Clemson didn't offer the master's program he was wanting to, take. And he decided to go to Carolina because Carolina did offer it. So,
I mean, it's a funny thing to have to say that it makes sense to go to a school based off the program that you're wanting to study, not just,
Yeah. And that's what they tell you in the recruiting process, but you can see how many, well, I'm not going to say many. I think that most of the guys actually do take that in consideration.
Yeah.
Unless they're looking at going pro, like that should be your number one outside of, do you trust the coaches? Is this a good fit? Should be, does it have your major?
Yeah.
But I know that's something we preach.
Yeah. But you can tell which ones aren't looking for a degree because they don't care what program's there. So, I mean, which, again, Is it the smartest thing? No, but am I going to fault you for chasing it and going after it? Not really. I mean, who am I to say that's that you could or couldn't? I don't know
Right.
the ins and outs of everybody's individual situations, so kind of hard to say there. But well, so speaking back on wrestling and the guys transferring, so
Sorry.
Rivera's going 41. It's going to be interesting him in the lineup. He has been, I think, the question at every weight that he's been at, though, so it should be interesting. At 25, he was the question for Spencer Lee. Like, can Spencer Lee beat him, At 33, he was the question of that group. Like, he was kind of the one. Like, well, he was the guy at 25 minus Spencer Lee, but, like, is he the guy to stop all the guys that are at 33, whether it be Fix, Soriano, or last year it was who's that third? Or Seth Gross, I think was a big name that everybody thought was, one of the top contenders, So he was always the question, is he the guy to stop these guys? So now at 41, like, is he the guy to match up with Tamak Yanni or Ironman?
No.
Or
Well, Yanni's a no, because I mean, he struggled with Lee, and Yanni is head and shoulders. I'm not going to say head and shoulders above Lee, but the styles are. I just no.
I mean, yeah. So I just think it makes for interesting talks. He'll be. I do think he will be that question again. It's kind of been like his role. Like, is he not a bracket buster because he's that good?
He's a dark horse.
Yeah.
There. Yes.
He's like the super good dark horse. Like, he's ranked 2, 3, sometimes 1, but yet everybody always thinks there's somebody else who's going to win, and he's that guy to, like, throw that monkey wrench in there.
In a sense, it's almost kind of like Austin DeSanto. Like, Austin DeSanto, we all know he can get it done, and there's always been that question of, is he the top guy there or not? But, I mean, he's also that guy you can never count out. And I would even say the same as RBY. You can never really definitively bet against RBY because – he's so funky that he can pull something out and, then he gets his win. And so.
Yep. So, and then the other transfer news was
Kennedy Monday.
I'm going to hit Monday last because I had a question about that, and I think I mentioned it to Tyler. Let's see what you think, Nick.
Okay.
But the other one is Teasdale. He's in the portal. I don't think he's landed anywhere yet. Or
not that I've seen.
And my question,
we know where he's going, though.
My question with him is, like, where does he go? And, like,
Michigan.
Is he one of those guys that was, like, super, super good going out, leaving high school, going into college, that we're just never going to see actually, like, fall into a program or, like, get that shot? You know what I mean? Like, what happens?
I don't know. I think that's a good possibility of what you just said. I think that, It is. It's like, the hype coming out, and then there's no spot for you where you are. And so now it's, where do I go to try to find a spot?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the downside of being the big dog all the time. And then you look around and realize that I got to get out there. So, Michigan makes sense, Tyler. I mean, I'm not.
No, I mean, I say that half jokingly, but I think it would be good because, after what happened 2 years ago when we had all those All-Americans returning, we had a pretty solid team. Last year we kind of took, fall back. Like we didn't necessarily have the best team that we've had in years past, and it would be an interesting fit. He's not international, so as far as like he doesn't come from overseas or anything, so that might disqualify him from coming to Michigan. I don't know, but no, I mean,
making gray shirts for other countries. Yeah,
exactly. Unless he all of a sudden starts trying to train with like Team Canada or something. I don't know, but no, I would say
so.
Exactly. I could see him going somewhere like I said, Michigan would be interesting. I would even say maybe Iowa State. That would be a cool fit because it's kind of him leaving Iowa, going to Iowa State, staying in that that area to kind of, I guess, prove Iowa wrong. But honestly, I see him going to I'd see him going maybe somewhere in the ACC, like a smaller. I don't want to say smaller, but not a Big Ten school. You know what I mean?
Hey, remind me again. Where was he? Where did he come out of high school?
Where did he come out of high school?
He was a 4-timer from PA, I thought.
That's what I thought. I thought he was. I thought he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say,
I mean, to be a 4-timer out of PA or even a 3-timer, he was one of the two. I thought. I mean,
Heck,
that's
just a 1 out of PA.
yeah. But you add to that, like, I mean, to his, I mean, he was a multiple timer out of PA, and I think he was a 4-timer. I mean, he was like the top name. He was
Mhm.
the big dog coming out. Like everybody wanted him. And
What's his weight class?
30.
197 now. Like I think he was what everybody thought he was going to be a 25-pounder type guy, and then he seemingly got bigger and bigger. And
I
then,
thought he was like 33 at the start of the year or something. Or
where is he at right now?
I don't know what he's at now.
No, I mean,
That's what I
like,
was asking.
is he at Iowa now, or did he start at Penn and then go to Iowa, or like, who did he first sign with and then went?
I think he's Iowa, if I'm not mistaken.
Did he? Was it always? I don't remember if he signed with Penn State first, but I don't know.
Yeah.
He just seems to have bounced around. For a guy
Yeah, I
that
was
haven't
thinking
got
the
to
same
see
thing.
wrestle, it seems like he's just bounced around everywhere. And I'm like, where's he at?
And I guess that's why when he hit the portal, I was just kind of like, okay. I mean, it just had never come to fruition.
Yeah.
I mean, well, let's throw it out. I mean, Mark Hall's there at Penn RTC. What about Penn? I mean, if he's a Pennsylvania guy looking to go back,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
you could
also
do that.
It's I guess you can kind of say a smaller school. I mean, it's not like a Big Ten, Penn State or Iowa or something like that. So I mean, Penn, might be a good fit.
Yeah, and we don't know the backstory either, so we don't know what's really going on. So
I mean, it would be interesting if he went somewhere like this is kind of completely. I guess you could say it's close to Penn too, to an extent, but like somewhere like Virginia Tech, an ACC school that's had good has had a good team in the past. Like he could be that one centerpiece that they start to try to build their stuff around for the foreseeable future.
I just think that with his credentials, unless there's some other backstory stuff, and he may have had some like other like issues that we don't know about that coaches know about. I mean, he seems like a guy that you would go ahead and take a chance on, like as good as he is. Like, you know.
Well, here's one school. You know, I know I've been saying ACC, but like talking about ACC, if he still wants to go to a big school that's a competitive school, NC State. I mean,
I don't know if they got those lower weights that I think they might have people already though too.
Yeah.
I don't know of anyone that could beat him. They've got people down there. No one that I don't think anyone there could take him out. At least maybe. I haven't seen him wrestle in years, but
yeah. I mean, that's the thing that we don't know what he looks like too. So we just have to wait and see. So, but it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I hope he lands somewhere that we get to see him wrestle and get to see him do some stuff because. I mean, I want to see him wrestle again. I mean, to see 4-timer, a guy that was doing like coming out of high school, doing the beach to the street stuff with the big time stars. Like, so he had that draw power, that wrestling ability. So it'd be nice to see him on the mat again. So, and then Kenny Monday hit the portal, and we all know he stayed. And this was my question, and not that I think this was Kenny Monday's intent with hitting.
Kennedy.
Kenny is big difference.
So far.
Yeah, so far. But my question is, like, how many of these good guys might end up using the portal to stay at their school and like renegotiate scholarship contracts? You know, like I'm not saying that's what he did. I think from what it looks like, he hit the portal. He was looking at maybe going somewhere else, and then like the overwhelming love and support that everybody was like, "We love you here." He was like, "Oh, maybe this is the home I want," you know, and decided to stay. Kind of like recommitted. But how many guys could actually use that and say, "Hey, you're only giving me so much. Well, let me go see what the portal has to offer and see if somebody's going to give me more." Do you think that's something we see happen in the future? I never really thought about it until this one.
It's in a sense, it's kind of like an athlete testing the free agent waters. I mean, even if they intend to re-sign, it's kind of like I don't want to say a shakedown per se, but it's
seeing what your worth is, like in a sense.
Yeah, it's like because if everyone views my worth as the same and I like where I'm at, I'll just stay where I'm at. But if I say I'm going to leave and then these people start saying, "Hey, we'll give you a full ride," you know, that it's kind of, even though you're not getting paid like an actual like professional athlete, which I'm people can argue that college athletes do get paid, but even though you're not getting paid in that sense, that's still money that you would be saving. It's like if you only got like a scholarship that covers 3/4 of your schooling, whereas you can get one that's going to cover 100% at a university that's somewhere maybe either smaller or a little bit further away. And why not take it? But
I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I was just curious as to what you guys thought if we see more
yeah, I totally think
games like doing that. Like, I mean, because think about it, like a lot of these programs, a lot of people don't realize that when you go into wrestling or a sport that's maybe not football, there are 9.5 scholarships, I think, available for a team. And this is like a big team. All right. So from my understanding, like big teams have like 9.5. They don't even have a full 10 scholarships, which really blows my mind. And because you have 10 guys on a team. And so they divvy up those 9.5 scholarships amongst the team. Like you get a quarter here, and that's how they divvy up their money. So you get a young guy coming out who really wants to go to a big name or something like that, and maybe they're only able to offer him this small piece of a scholarship, and they get there and they start improving, they get better, and they sign for this little minuscule scholarship piece where they could have gone at another place and gotten more, and then you kind of like try to negotiate and say, hey, coach, I've done so much more. Can we renegotiate for the next year? What do we got? And they're like, no, we're not going to be able to do it. So it's either this or nothing. And then be like, well, I'm going to go see what somebody else has. And then I guess it also just depends on the coaches too, like how honest they are. Like, did they really have any more they could have given them, or is it really they have what they have and that's it? I'm just
and the other thing that we forget about, like you said, wrestling's like 9.9 or whatever. That is without having some things like, so you could actually have less than the 9.9. So based off of if you've had some things taken away based on whatever the whatever the ratings and stuff are. Yeah. So you could have less than that. And also if they give $100 or more to you and you don't complete it, then that's a negative hit on you. So that is the stuff that those guys have to, that the coaches have to keep in mind. But, that is an interesting point of, will we see guys doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting too, because now NCAA has said that, is it gone through that they'll pay an athlete for or an athlete can get money for their likeness of their usage or something like that? Will we see that become like negotiating factors? Like, hey, you can make this much money if you come here doing this, but we can only offer you this. And then I don't know. I think the landscape of college recruiting is going to be interesting the next couple of years, especially post-COVID. I'm going to say post-COVID as in I'm going to try to be positive and hope that we get through next season and all that, especially for Ham's sake. I know he wants to have next season. But
there's no doubt.
So like post-COVID, like recruiting processes, I think are going to be kind of interesting, and the paying an athlete for their likeness, the transfer portal being available. I just think the makeup of wrestling, since we're talking about our sport, is going to be kind of interesting, and I'm sure it affects other sports too. Obviously, we just don't spend as much time like looking into their stuff, but I think it's going to be an interesting next couple of years, seeing how these things pan out for things.
Let me ask you, this is not wrestling related, but has y'all school decided to change, or have they even this past week just kind of revamped the fall semester? Because originally they said we're all going to be face-to-face and it's going to be up until Thanksgiving break, and then we're online again. But now they've retracted that given the recent spikes again. And I think all but 2 of my classes are online. And the only 2 that aren't online are ones that only have a handful of people in them to begin with, like maybe 6 people.
So they feel like that classroom could be socially distanced or something like that anyway?
Yeah. So that's my assumption, that, or maybe the professors haven't decided yet.
Yeah.
They just have it still listed face-to-face. But all my other ones are – we had 4 options. We had asynchronic, synchronatic. Then there was 50-50, where it could be some synchronized, some unsynchronized. and then face to face, or maybe it's like 50%. I can't remember, but they went back and redecided that how they're going to do the fall, and I'm just curious if McCracken's done anything.
No, I think when we talked about, I thought your school kind of did it preemptively. I was like,
Yeah.
they kind of did this a little too early to say what's going to happen next semester. Like when they were doing it, I think everybody was kind of jumping the gun. Us here, we're still on wait and see. We just finished filling out the parent surveys and the teacher surveys on what we think. And basically it's down to like one of three models. One model still being low to no COVID, we get to go to school like normal. Worst model, too high, no actual in-school learning at all e-learning. And then the middle ground one, which is the one that to me is in a way logical, but very much the least logical, is the hybrid model, where they're talking about we're at a middle ground. We're going to try to figure out ways to get part of the school population in, part not in, and then flip-flop, whether it be an extended day, half come part of the day. I think one of the things that they're looking at around here, and you can read them on this, so I'm not saying anything, is you can read them all online with the return to school plans. They talked about a split model of, splitting the kids into A-B groups. One group comes on the A days, whether that's Monday and Tuesday or whether that's Monday and Wednesday, however they decide. And then another group coming on B days, and so forth. And then like one day being everybody virtual type day. So they're trying to limit the number of people like around each other at one time while still trying to get as much face-to-face as possible. Again, all that sounds ideal and everything, but my biggest issue with that is like, it just doesn't take into consideration, I think, the working parent, whether it be a school teacher who has kids that are that age or, the average person who's working wherever it is they're working. I don't think most workplaces are readjusting their schedules for their employees' school children. Like you just can't do that. Like that's too many people to figure out, hey, what days does your kid go to school? They go to school on these days. Oh, wait, but it's going to change next week possibly. Like a business can't run that way. So I think that's the hardest part, is trying to figure out how to do that while still having, like we've talked about, the economy and people being able to go to their own workplaces and do things,
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I also, it worries me about if they do in like actual in face-to-face classes for middle school level, how sports are going to look, just because I know a lot of gyms around this area, especially one in Greenville. I don't want to give their name out because they just posted that due to the spikes, they're canceling classes this week, when in actuality 2 of their members tested positive for COVID. They just didn't want to disclose that, but that's beside the point. Although I feel like that's unethical on their part. But there's a lot of cases where that's happening, where gyms are getting, not only like martial arts gyms, but like actual gyms where COVID's been getting in, or even restaurants per se, where they have to close down because there's been cases within that establishment. And as soon as they reopen up, they're having to shut the doors again for X amount of time until they can get everyone tested. Yeah. And I worry it happened with the schools, because if we go back and we start having wrestling practice, and we have one kid test positive, well, we have a match coming up that Wednesday. Do we have to cancel the match because?
I would imagine so.
Yeah. They we had our stuff on, our state superintendent talked on Friday, and basically it was pretty much wide open. Like, hey, everybody's going to be different. This is kind of what we're doing. But they did also bring up what you're talking about, Tyler. Like, what happens when a kid tests positive, and they're basically like, well, it's going to be like a case by case basis. It may be a deal where you have to like shut a classroom down. If it's enough, you shut the school down. So they're kind of like, we really honestly don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
So and then the sports part of it is, basically all they said with the sports stuff is we will play football. That was said. He was like, we will play football in the fall. But,
I told you, they're going to do football. Football will get a shortened season, and then we're going to be like, all right, guys, we tried it. See, we had to cut our season short, but we do have our state champ over here, and we're going to cancel all other sports.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one of those. Like we had this talk last night. I think we talked on here. Like I said, my only fear with wrestling, I mean, is that it's inside. And I've told our coaching staff, I was like, this is our way. This is actually the way to get back to where wrestling was great. With now, you bring in one team, and you bring back the dual match, and the lineup and all that stuff, and it's just one team in and out. Boom, you can spread people out, but that's going to be the hardest thing. Like I said, I think football they're going to play it here because they'll be able to say spread them out and it's outside, but the rest of it, I don't know. I just worry.
Baseball, I could see them making an exception with, just because it's so socially distanced, and you're not really doing anything where you're having to be face to face, or you're not breathing heavy, so you're spreading that. Because I don't care what anyone says, baseball is one of the most unathletic sports out there, and that comes from someone who played it.
Yeah, so hitting the ball is athletic.
Maybe
say it's somewhat athletic.
But we'll define like cardiovascular athletics versus just the power of being able to hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, hand-eye coordination.
There's different.
Everyone has hand-eye coordination. My cousin, gamer. He's a gamer. He plays games real well. He's got good hand-eye coordination. Is he an athlete? Absolutely not. You put him out there to play basketball. He's not.
So they did what the FRL last week. They got in that debate again of athletics versus sports competition, and I never heard it this way. It actually made sense though. They said an athletic event is something that has defense. If they don't have defense, it's a sports. Or they said that's a sport. If it doesn't have defense, it's an athletic competition. So I was like, well, all right. So I got to give baseball that one. There is defense out there, but it does help with some of the other stuff like golf. I like golf. You say it's a sport now. I can say, oh, you know what? It's an athletic competition.
It is.
Nobody's grabbing that ball and kicking it off the green. So
I guess you can say that. I still consider golf as a very difficult skill leveled activity. Okay.
Yeah.
Like
it's very meticulous.
You got to be good at what you're doing. And can everybody do it? No, by no means. But at the same time, can a lot of people go out there with a lot of beverages and just go socialize and do it? Then that's not really making it competitive. So there's different.
Yeah.
But down the rabbit hole with that one.
Sorry.
I agree. No, I agree though. Devin was playing baseball. I think we went out to a game last night. And in all honesty, like watching them play, especially at youth level, it's a very socially distant sport anyway, as you said.
Yeah.
They're not shaking hands after they're in their own side on their dugout. They're sitting next to each other, but it's one person up to bat at a time. People are spread out in the field. The thing that isn't socially distant, minus myself going off to sit on the side of a hill to watch the game, is like everybody else watching. So I think the big thing the takeaway from that is not just our sports stuff. Like we're going to have our regulations in place for wrestling. We're going to have our regulations obviously in place for the football players, for how things are going to look on the field. It's how are you going to manage these crowds of people who do not believe in this, who do not believe in masks, who do not believe in anything else, and who are all hugging all over each other and coughing on each other while they're getting hot dogs from the concession stand. And I'm like, y'all just look like a cesspool of spreading of things right now, hey, have a drink of this and share a drink. I'm like, oh God, I'm going to just stay over here away from the thing that is not regulated anymore. The sports, I think, if we had sports like how they're doing, we've talked about it before, UFC and the fake wrestling, which is also just entertaining wrestling, I'll call it for Tyler, where there's nobody in the arena itself. Yes, I think sports can happen. But it's the parents and the spectators that I don't think are going to be educated enough, or they're going to be enforced enough to say, hey, we need to, for the safety of the children, because they're all still kids out there, of what we need to do. If you want your son to be able to have get their season, you parents need to understand what the rules and regulations are. And that one, okay, when I'm talking about wrestlers too here, admittedly so, I think we have the greatest sport, but at times we have the worst parents, because also what other sport can you have parents like walking out onto the field of play at times? It's our sport is that much more intimate, even with our fans. That little rope that says stay back here on the other side of the tournament line, we all know it doesn't really work. So you throw COVID in the mix of all that, I think it's an educational thing where parents have to learn how to be parents and the role models and things, because the kids are going to do whatever they have to do in order to participate. The kids are going to be like, Coach, if this is what I got to do in order to have a season, cool, we will do it, tell us what we got to do. The kids are on board with it. It's the parents that are going to crowd in and bring, 15 grandmoms with them and try to all get them all in for free, and just do all that kind of stuff and that kind of craziness. That's where I see sports getting shut down.
It's funny. You mentioned professional wrestling, and they're recently the WWE's been taking a lot of heat from other people, including people that work there, because they're pushing to get fans back in the building, because part of that is entertainment. You have to have the fans. I understand. So what they started doing is they started kind of doing with the whole, like, hey, let's just not test people and act like it's not there, and then people will forget about it type thing. They banned masks from the crowd. So if you're in the crowd, you're not allowed to wear a mask anymore. Multiple people I guess they cut down the testing because multiple wrestlers have started to test positive for it. And they're like, we were doing fine. And then you had to pretty much act like it's not existing anymore. And people are getting sick again.
Well, I mean, if you think about sports and as far as like cheering and competing at sports too, like one of the reasons why they're, because I do related arts, I mean, Nick knows too, but I don't know how much they've talked about, they're having a hard time dealing with what to do in a choir or a music classroom and you project. So if we can't allow children to get in a group and sing and project, how are we going to tell parents that you can't yell, you can't cheer your son on because you're then, doing the things that they don't want you to do. Like, it's a scary thought to think about how many things come into play when it comes to just watching a game that, like you said,
it boils down to it's a tough topic to talk about. It's not something that's got an easy answer, but it boils down to, personal freedoms versus taking care of the whole, like, or of the community or people around you. Like, which one does your moral obligation, like which one do you have a greater propensity to do, to keep your personal freedoms, or make sure your moral obligation to keep others safe within your control is satisfied? And that's a hard topic. A lot of people say you have more responsibility to personal freedom, and others say not necessarily. Like, there are times where you have to be social because we are social creatures, therefore you have the obligation to take care of others. I mean, it's a complicated, it's not like a black and white, right or wrong type thing. There's shades.
That's what's made it also interesting. When I say interesting, also difficult, is because there are different dilemmas, and everything's going to have to boil down to. I think what people have to realize is kind of like what Nick said about how they're going to have to deal with cases as they come up. I think you have to look at things, and that's the problem, is everybody's trying to give a one holistic thing to say to do when that blanket statement doesn't fit everybody's personal situation. Now, I think if we take things case by case and doing what's best for you, your freedoms, and the whole, and you can find a way to make them mesh and match, I think we'll be better off. But too many people aren't open-minded enough to want to work and figure things out, and everybody wants to do their way or the highway type thing.
And I mean, I've had this conversation with people a lot where they say, well, this country was founded on, personal freedom. I'm like, personal freedom is important, and yes, to an extent it was, but there is a degree of social responsibility that you have when we were an early nation. Nick probably knows this. You had bucket duty, where every man would have to, I guess you could, I don't want to say volunteer, but he was part of bucket duty. So if there's fires, you had to carry buckets of water and help put out fires, even if it's not your own house. We had the draft, where you had mandatory armed service, stuff like that, where it benefits the whole while taking some of your liberty away. It's doing that in order to keep your personal liberty safe, if that makes sense. So it's kind of blending the two. And then, I've had this interesting conversation with a professor of mine. He's him being a philosopher and teaching ethics and stuff. I had a very interesting ethical question for him, or at least so I thought. It's So it's like, what do you have? It was during when all the protests were going on. It's like, do you have a greater obligation to protest what happened, because what happened was bad? It's like, do you have a greater obligation to protest what happened and stand up against that, or prevent the spread of the virus by not doing it? And granted, those things don't go together a lot, but in this situation it did. So it's like one of those things that, I mean, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, to an extent. Like, whichever one you do, you're putting yourself at some sort of risk.
Yeah. And I'll jump in. Like, I'll say this, and I've said this before, like, I am a person that I will wear the mask. Like right now, Jefferson County, which is where a lot of stuff is now required. So, all right, you're going to make me wear the mask. All right, I will wear it because that's just what I'm supposed to do. My frustration and where I struggle with is we see all of the numbers going up, and the numbers of cases are going up, but the number, and that's all we're advertising, but the number of hospitalizations, the number of deaths, the number of ICUs, all of those, for the most part across the country, even in these areas, they're going down. So most of the people that are being tested that are showing positive, and I know we're getting off the wrestling, but like they may not even have symptoms. Like there's nothing wrong with them. It's just, oh, you tested positive for this. And the other thing is the whole point of the quarantine, whatever, was to flatten the curve, not to get rid of it. Well, now, okay, so now the numbers are spiking like, oh, we're back to where we were. Well, guess what? The curve has been flattened then. Okay. I mean, we're just back to where it was at the height, so to speak, but now people want to panic. And that's where I get frustrated in that let's look at all of it. Let's quit making it like, a panic mongering thing to try to do whatever it is. I even read an article 2 days ago on, I think they were, I can't what state, but they're now like people saying, well, we don't need to have high school sports because now they're back on the, oh, well, it can travel more than 6 feet and it comes through sweat and spit and like all this stuff that 2 months ago they came out and said, oh, well, that's really not true. We over exaggerate. Now they're starting to bring this stuff back in to create the panic. And I get that's where I struggle. Like I said, I got to wear it. I'll wear it.
Yeah.
So,
well, as far as
anyway.
the flattening the curves goes, the flattening the curve was mainly to avoid the overwhelming of the hospital systems. And for the most part, a lot of them are, handling it okay. I know here in Spartanburg and a few other places around here have actually, on the other hand, are not doing okay. They're having to add a whole nother floor of, I think it's regional, had to take out part of their children's care facilities to add more stuff for COVID because everyone started going out and getting sick here. Texas recently came out and said, okay, guys, we're not doing okay. Like, we're going to have to scale back the reopening. More people are getting it. And to an extent, I think we've noticed that it's being roughly the same as far as like how many people are dying, if not slightly lowering, which is a good thing. It means it's thought. However, I think it's because we don't have anything to treat it right now. And a lot of people are worried, like, if I give it to, even if I'm not going to die from it or y'all are not going to die from it, that's not to say that the old lady who I just passed by in the aisle, somehow I gave it to, she's not going to survive. I think they're trying to minimize it as best as they can as far as the deaths goes, because, you don't want to unnecessarily give it to somebody who could be in bad shape. And I think that's why people are staying concerned about it. And that's the reason I'm 100% for the mask. I'm not, if I get it, knock on wood, I hope I don't, after dealing with that bronchitis last week.
Yeah, you went through the scare.
Oh my God, that was awful, man. I'm telling you, like, it felt like someone lit a match in my chest. I was like, what is this? But anyway, I know for my safety, even if I get it, knock on wood, I may not die, but I still don't want to be responsible for giving to someone who doesn't have the immune system to fight it off, and they do die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll throw my little bit in, and we can get back to wrestling with it. Like I said, I've been pro-mask after I learned about it and things like that. I think the mask does help, or if it gives the possibility to help, great. And like Nick said, if we're mandated to wear a mask in these areas, then I'm going to be a responsible citizen and I'll wear the mask because that's a responsible thing to do. It's just like when we go into places and stuff, doing things. Good. I think being a responsible person not only comes from just like wearing the mask, but like, I was thinking about 2 other things. One was like, most places say shirt and shoes required, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't seem to have a problem wearing shirts and shoes when I go places. It's not offending my moral freedoms. I mean, Nick,
I prefer not to wear shoes, but
okay, I was gonna say, I know Nick likes to go barefoot everywhere, but
I am too. I'm barefoot right now, just about.
I wash my feet. I never wash my shoes. That's my argument.
There you go. I've heard these arguments from Nick before, but
this is similar
but at the same time, though, he still wears his shoes when he has to go someplace if it says to do it. So, I don't think it's like hurting people's freedoms in that sense. Like I'm like
Yeah.
you're kind of like
People are exaggerating that part.
now if they're telling you you must wear a mask in your own home in your own privacy, and then we're taking it a step too far. The other thing that I think about all this is I am happy to see that the number of deaths and things I think are going down and things like that. And like we're seeing more of maybe an 80-20 as far as like the severity of the virus itself. Like for a lot of people, it's not, I think as it's spreading more, we're seeing more and more people get it who aren't having the really bad effects of it.
The herd immunity that has happened in countries that didn't do anything is taking place.
So, but what I'm still thinking about though is the newness of it though is like another reason why I'll still wear a mask and stuff to try to give myself a chance, or somebody else, like you said, to not give somebody, is the ones that do get it bad, man, it's still pretty nasty.
Oh yeah.
You know?
It's nasty.
And
Yeah.
the problem with that is we don't know enough of like how come more aren't getting it, or who does get that, and who does, like, it's completely random on like there's the 21-year-old who has to have a lung transplant, you know, like, and the newness of it. What I don't understand is like, man, how come, like, you know, it's just one of those things, like, how come we aren't seeing more people play Russian roulette? I mean, with it basically, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, all right, let's get back to wrestling because we get on this every.
yep. Now,
Yeah, I mean, it's the only thing to talk about, sadly, though. Which it brought up a good point, or not a good point, but a good question for me to ask at the end. My random question, and y'all may be on board with it. We'll see.
All right, we'll see.
Now, who got a chance to watch the? Was it only 3 matches? No, I only saw 3 matches.
What the other night?
The other night on the Rumble rooftop?
There was a bunch of them.
Was
Hey,
there?
hurry up and just come on down to the truck. Hurry though.
So when I
Sorry.
watched it, I got online because I didn't get a chance to watch it that night. I can't remember what we were doing, but I got online and found the highlight matches that were the ones that were really advertised. So
I don't know. It said that there was several, like when you went back and looked at it, but I don't know.
the three big matches I think that were worth talking were like the names that we saw were Pat Downey versus Rao, and that was one match, 2 periods, 1 period Greco, 1 period freestyle, which I thought was just kind of fun that they did that. And then we had the 2 number 1 seeds from 2 different weights. We had Pat Lugo and Luke Pletcher. I was like, that's a great match. And then I love watching Jo and then Jo and Nolf wrestle.
Right.
That was like the final thing. So did you guys get a chance to see it or go back and find the matches and watch them yet?
Oh man, I did not.
I
Unfortunately,
did not get to watch them now.
I didn't get to watch them. When was it? It was Saturday, wasn't it?
Sunday.
Or Sunday.
Sunday, yeah. I think it was Sunday. I watched them Monday morning, or I watched those 2 matches Monday morning. So I guess I kind of give my breakdown of that. One is great to like look up matches that were recent. I was like, yes, they're wrestling again. I did note that they were on a rooftop, so it was outside. And
Undisclosed location.
Yeah. And there were multiple people. There's some people with masks, some people without masks, you know, so, but whatever. It was on a rooftop. It was wrestling. It was cool. We'll just focus on the wrestling part of it. First matchup with PD3 and Rao, I thought was interesting. Since they started off with a Greco match, and you can score a lot of points fairly quickly in Greco with the way they do like the throws and lifts and stuff. I think,
and they did no tech falls too.
Yeah,
because of that.
So, but Rao got up 9-0, I think, in that first period, and PD3 came back and got like 3 takedowns in the second period. So he lost like it was either 2 or 3. It was 9-6 or 9-4. I thought it was interesting. I liked that they did both styles. So we got to see a little Greco, we got to see a little freestyle. I thought it was you know, I mean, was I surprised, or there was nothing really mind-boggling about like the outcome of the match and all. My biggest thing from that was I found it funny that then soon after PD3, again, this is another one. I don't follow Twitter, but it got posted. I think I put on Instagram too. PD3 was like, looking forward to wrestling Taylor. Can't wait to wrestle him. And then made some like innuendos that like that training lab. Yeah, I'm still here. Still there?
Yep.
All right. It'll probably take you a second to cut over to your Bluetooth or whichever. But we can still hear you and see you. But
yeah, you're on the truck now. I'm
yeah.
swapping it up. Keep going.
Okay. But I found it interesting that he kind of, it seemed like the way people read it, like he kind of made an accusation that this training lab and those athletes that go there, including David Taylor, were all on the juice. And it was like, I was like, wow. David Taylor to me doesn't strike me as the person to be on the juice and all that kind of stuff. And he was like,
No, he doesn't. But also, it would make sense that body transformation of his. I would be like, oh, okay, that's not shocking then. So
But
I don't think he is.
yeah, I like his response. He was like, how about we drug test and see which one of us fails, and then the winner gets all the money.
'Cause I think Pat
Yeah,
Downey's
I
on
think I
some
totally missed all that one. So
Pat Downey, I think's on some stuff, and I don't think it's PEDs. I think it's he's on some other stuff to make him a little wacky.
Yeah, I think that was the general thing. So we were just talking
Speaking
about. I was going to tell you, he said he missed part of that. I was going to say the biggest takeaway was PD3 trying to call out David Taylor for being on steroids, and David Taylor saying, "All right, let's both take a drug test and see who fails, and the winner takes all the money." So
yeah. I mean, I've heard. I guess that part. Yeah, I saw that kind of back and forth with them, and I was just like, wow, come on now.
yeah,
You should be better.
I thought it was kind of funny. I was like,
maybe he's just trying to hype up. Maybe he's hyping up the July 25th matchup.
Well, I mean,
There's no doubt.
But I'll give him credit. He's good at playing that game and doing the hype up and saying whichever. So, whether you say it's good or bad, I enjoy it to an extent. I thought it was kind of out there
I think it's
a
a
little
necessary
bit.
evil.
Yeah. So
I think trash talk like that to an extent, it's not like saying, hey, you're on steroids, but I think having that person who can play that bad guy or that kind of gimmicky thing to build up the hype, I think it's a necessary evil when you have sports like wrestling or because we're not a mainstream sport like football. Like we do have to build our own hype up, unfortunately, for matchups.
I mean, I kind of equate it to like the UFC and WWE to an extent of like you got two people like getting ready to have a showdown. Why not have a little bit of like build up,
storyline,
like make it a little bit more fun for the crowd to pick a person that they for the casual fan, as Quasi likes to say, for somebody to kind of pick a team that they want to say, hey, I like their persona, let me cheer for them, or just give them something to that nature.
I mean, that's like Colby Covington. A lot of people can't stand him, and they get so mad at his character. But at the end of the day, they don't realize he's even admitted it's a character. He's doing it to piss you off. Like, I mean, does he probably believe some of that stuff? Maybe, but he's turning it up to 11 is all he's doing. He's doing it like him. And I think that to an extent in sports like wrestling where we do have to build our own hype up for matchups. Like to us diehard fans, when you see Chamizo, Dake, and like Downey and David Taylor, like to us that's enough to hype up a match.
For us,
if you're trying to popularize the sport, you need just a little bit more to get those people who are like, hold up, I don't know these guys, but this seems kind of fun to watch. Like this seems like it's gonna get, wild. So
it's a reason to make a commercial so that people can watch and see what they think is going on and why they got it going on that way.
Who do you have for that matchup, by the way? Taylor or Downey?
Oh, Taylor.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So, all right. Nick Mayo frozen. We'll leave him kind of right there. We'll see if he catches back in or not. The next match between. Okay, there he's back.
Yeah.
Until it like switches over to LTE or whichever.
Yeah, I just left the house, so I just had to swap from Wi-Fi to that, so we're good.
Yeah.
All right. So next match.
Next match was Pat Lugo versus Pletcher. And if you guys didn't watch, I don't know if you guys even know who won, but who do you think who won or what?
Who do I think won?
Yeah.
I'd say Pat Lugo.
Okay.
I think that's who I read won, to be honest with you, because I went back and read the USA Wrestling breakdown of it. So.
Pat Lugo did win, and I was going to say this was actually my favorite match out of the three that I saw. Watching those two wrestle, I mean, they got after it. There were a couple of situations. It started off, I think it was like 5-0 maybe, the final score, but like they got in some good scrambles, and we got a couple push outs and then a takedown and a push out. But it was, I think, to me, the most entertaining match of those three, like because it was wrestling and scrambles to a couple push outs, and it was like, oh man, we got to see what would have been likely two national champs from two separate weights kind of get after it,
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that match for that aspect. I also enjoyed, I think we've all got one, the Brandon Sorensen bandana.
I don't have one yet, but I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Okay. I thought you had them too. But Pat Lugo, like, I don't know if they're all the Iowa guys are wearing them right now, but he had his singlet was basically that bandana, like the Brandon Sorensen, singlet.
Yeah, I
And was
saw
like,
that. That was pretty sweet.
I was like,
Yeah.
that's cool. And they were like, and great news that he's in remission right now. And but I still thought it was cool and that's one of the reasons why I like Iowa. Just not to say that other teams aren't that way, but like that bond that they all kind of still have to even represent all that stuff and the bandanas and singlets. And for a team that doesn't do anything different with their singlet, for their wrestling club to still have a different singlet from everybody else's to the bandanas, I was like, all right.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
that makes me appreciate your classic singlet even more, knowing that you're willing to do it in other areas, but you're going to keep that one classic. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Final match of the night was Jo versus Nolf, and minus like one little exchange, I got to say, as much as I love Jordan Oliver and love watching him wrestle, that match was really just a lot of feints and head fakes and like half shots and just reactions from the both of them. It was kind of like, it's like watching Anderson Silva fight in a championship match, except you're only watching the first 2 rounds where he's just filling the person out for 2 rounds.
Yeah, that's what I read about, was like, even they both admitted that it sucked. And like Nolf, even though after he won, apparently even was like, hey, this match sucked, let's do it again. So I thought that spoke volumes for Nolf to go, all right, I won, but I don't think it was our best performance.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's kind of like that situation, like, even if you win, do you really win type thing? Like,
right.
I think it was 1-1, maybe both of them being passivities, not even push-outs. Like, they were both passivity points. And then, like, it was an awkwardly weird scramble that Nolf they gave him 2 points at the very end. It was about to be another passivity point anyway, so it was kind of like a null point. But, yeah, as much as I love that it was wrestling, at least I thought about it this way, at least I have a match to complain about,
Yeah.
So, I mean, would I have rather have seen the fireworks of what those two could have been? For sure. But at least we can say that there was a match wrestled, and we have something to complain about versus, hey, what are we going to talk about in our wrestling show here?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I spent Sunday binge watching the We Are first 2 episodes and finally watched Bad Blood.
Yeah.
Dude, they're awesome. I
still have to
about
finish
it.
Yeah. I got to finish Bad Blood, and I want to watch the Metcalf one. Those are my next 2 on queued up. Ready.
Bad Blood was good. Bad Blood was good. I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't think – I don't know. I think there's more Bad Blood with other rivalries. I think this goes back to the fact that whenever Dake graduated, like it felt like, even at the time, it felt like Flo just kind of pushed Burroughs to the side and was like, here's the next one. And Burroughs has just never gone away. And and now Dake was the one, it felt like, even in that interview, was the one like doing more of the trash talking, and Burroughs was like trying to give him props and stuff, and was just like, all right, dude. And it's kind of like the young guy and the old guy talking. Like the young guy's doing the yap, and the old guy's like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So,
but I've started that one. I need to finish it, and the Metcalf one is the one I've been wanting to watch. But I think I'll wait till the 3rd one comes out, which is like tomorrow night, I think, and then maybe watch all those. And then Tyler will have access to all my stuff while I'm gone, so you can binge.
And there you go. That's going to be what I'm probably going to be watching when I'm there anyway.
So yeah.
It was good. The We Are stuff. The first episode, there was a lot of stuff that I had forgotten because it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
That at the time, you start putting pieces together. The biggest thing out of it that I took so far was something that I didn't even think about, but everybody wants to know Penn State, how they train, how are they so good, and they bring up the fact that nobody knows because nobody's in there. And I started thinking, I was like, Iowa room, how they train, Oklahoma State, how they train. You start going through everybody's room, and it's like, Penn State really is Kel Sanderson. It's kind of closed off, but they're just really, really good at what they do.
Yeah.
And so, we were talking as a staff last night about that, and I thought that was really, really impressive. And, that was the first 2 that kind of jumped out. So I was like, it was good.
Cool. All right, so we need to get another guest on so we can do more Wings and Aliens with Tyler. But it sounded like, Tyler, you had a question maybe you wanted to finish off with?
I did, and I'm curious what y'all think.
We're going to go – all right, so even though it's just us, we're moving into Wings and Aliens with Tyler for our final segment.
So would y'all think more people would be on board is if if the mask we had to wear were like the luchador masks from like the Mexican wrestlers, like, come on now. Like, tell me that would not.
But your mouth is still open.
Not if you build like a little face thing to cover that.
So all right, so Tyler said you have to do the. There is the one dude that does have the full one, not the Rey Mysterio one, like that's cut open.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
I think I might do that. I'm gonna get me one that's got the little protectors on the eyes, that's got the mesh screen, so I can still see out of it, but doesn't let anything in. But I'm gonna have it where it like covers my mouth, and I'm gonna wear that thing around, man. You know.
Well, I mean, I might have to get one of those anyway because they were talking about either that or the stupid plastic shields that cover your whole face.
I'm not wearing a plastic shield. I am sorry.
So I'm gonna go with Tyler. I'm gonna get one of the El Luchador masks just for that, to go along with my main mask that I've been creating with the whole wrestler. So
hey, you talk about you can't make this stuff up. Apparently somewhere, I can't remember where it was, but somebody brought up. You've seen those like box things, the clear boxes where like they have the arms out and like the person wears like the waist. Like apparently this was brought up for teachers to wear, and they were laughed at. And I was like, if that was happening, first of all, I'm not wearing it. But secondly, if I did have to wear it, I'm going to put a privacy blind up, and I'm going to slide that thing across. Be like, nope, I'm not talking to you right now. Like blocking them off. Like no, done.
I just thought about like with that one, I was like, y'all don't know that wrestlers have been wearing those already. They're called plastics. We use those for weight cutting.
Yep.
So we've already lived that, and we've banned that from our sport, so I can't wear that.
Yeah. So as far as the Lucha Libre mask, I mean, would I wear it just for the heck of it? I would wear it just for the heck of it, but yeah, probably not. I
want to get me one of those Ultimo Dragon ones though that like covers like the whole head and has the little tail going down the back. I'm gonna go all out if I can make one like that. I'm gonna do it.
All right.
I have to send a mock up to Purdy, get him to.
There we go. So next goal is building of our own lucha masks. We'll get it all figured out. All right. I think that's a perfect way to end it for today.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Nope. All right. I love it, Tyler. Good job.
All right.
All right, I'll holler at you guys later on, and we'll get all the stuff posted for everybody. And Nick, just give me a holler later on. We'll talk some more about some of the shop stuff and everything.
All right, sounds good, man. See ya.
All right, see you guys.